You're here, which means that you've found spirit crumbs, leading you to your inner light worker. I will be sharing how these tiny little hints from the universe have led me to where I am today. I hope that by hearing my story and the stories of others, you'll pick up your own spirit crumbs along the way that will lead you to somewhere magical. Thanks for coming along for the journey. Let's see where it takes us.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Emily from Emily and Her Stars and Things That Make You Go Woo.
And I'm Andrea from Concrete and Crystals and Spirit Crumbs.
We're so happy to have you back as we get ready to welcome Gemini season. Andrea and I have been catching up, as we always do before we hit record. And we were talking about how the energy feels. It's just scattered. God bless Gemini season. I love it. But it is so distracting.
It really is. And it always seems to sneak in early. Like this is like a couple weeks early. And we were talking about how it's so weird how this time of year, compared to the holidays, when we would think it would be so hard to manage all the things we try to do with our extra episodes. But it's always this one that throws us off and has something wild happen. And, something happens with Zoom or something happens with posting our episodes. And then I was like, you know what the common denominator is? It's Gemini season. And you know what? As much as it's apparently been throwing us off, we realize it also is when we like to experiment and try new things. So I think it does offset it. I feel like it's that chaos and open to anything energy is there. And it sometimes works in our favor. But as earth signs, I think it is just something that does totally throw us off of our routines.
I have a Gemini moon, so Taurus sun, Gemini moon, Aries rising. And I always think, I love my Gemini moon because I can get curious and go down a rabbit hole like no other, but so easily distracted. Oh my gosh, I get so annoyed with myself. We were talking about getting ready to record Inviting Shadow already because, of course, Cancer season coming up is solstice, and we want to talk about the second half of the year and all those things. But yeah, to squeeze Gemini season, Cancer season, and Inviting Shadow in, I'm like, how? Who superhuman decided this was going to be the way we needed to do things? So anyway, we're cracking ourselves up. And it just reminds me of how I love a good metaphor. You know that, everyone. But talking about Gemini season being this feeling of the pollinator, right? It's the wind, it's the butterfly, it's the bee that's like, I got to check every flower, every bud as fast as I can. I want to gather, I want to connect. I'm flying on the wind, on the breeze. It's the season of sacred curiosity. And I love that. I do, because it's so fun. There's a vibrant, youthful energy to this season. But I think what happens and what we have to remember is that our thoughts are spells, and you have to be careful which direction you're going, which rabbit hole you're going. How do you pull yourself back out of that sometimes when it goes too far? But like any air sign quality, it's really easy to get stuck in the mind and overthink things and ruminate and go around and around. So yeah, just pay attention to what you feel drawn to. It's like playing this feeling of, what can I possibly pull out of the day to make it exciting times 10? It just, every direction, every opportunity. In terms of how Gemini season reacts archetypally, let's talk about some of the history of it, right? Mercury, or the ruler of Gemini, was the only god that could travel between Olympus or Earth and the underworld. And so the season invites us to be that idea of bridge walking as well. Like, how do we move between both of those realms? Because it is bringing a continuity between our mind, our body, and our spirit. And the language that all of those have in common is curiosity, right? We have this meat suit that we get to explore the world with, but our mind is what's making us kind of pivot and take directions and choose the things that we're interested in. And then we're nourishing our spirit and soul along the way. So Gemini, I think it's a bad rap sometimes for being distracted, or people say two-faced, or, I never know where they're coming from. Or there's a part of it that, yes, I can see or someone could feel that way in the energy, but you have to remember that nothing is faster than the speed of a thought. And if thoughts are changing that rapidly, it's just that Gemini hasn't taken you along the ride to get from A to B. I always talk with my husband when we're in the car and I'll say something completely, he thinks, random, out of left field. Like, we were talking about breakfast and now I'm talking about rabbits. And he's like, how did we get there? I was like, oh, because we went to this restaurant and there was a mural on the wall of a rabbit and it made me think of that. And like 10 steps happened in 2.5 seconds. And I just didn't take him on that journey. But when I back up and explain it, it makes perfect sense. So be careful of, we're talking about burning the energy with so much planetary energy and fire. Like physically we can burn through our energy, but I think of burning through your mental energy this time of year. Give yourself an opportunity to take a break, to ground back down, slow down, really bring in some meditative space, some time in nature, things that bring you back down into your body. Just slow all those thoughts down a little bit.
Yeah, I think like with the fast thoughts, like I am familiar with that energy for sure. And I think one of the things that we can try to do as much as possible is, if you know your energy is there in your brain and you are wanting to explore things, even just choosing one thing that you want to do a deep dive on, like that's where sometimes going in a rabbit hole could be good. If there's something you do need to learn more about, or something that you need to get done that like is interesting to you, like really trying to find a way to make it seem interesting and to allow for that curiosity to take over a little bit, whether it's a creative project or just a book that you've been meaning to read that you forgot you had on the shelf, like something that you can then feel good about how that energy is spent. Because I think sometimes for me, if I go between too many things with that pollinating and then I don't have any results, being an earth sign, and it's like, what did I even get out of that? Like, that's what kind of frustrates me more so than the time spent. I enjoy the time when I'm doing the pollinating and the looking, but I think sometimes I have to remind myself to choose one of those curiosities and stick with it. And then I feel good about it because I feel like I've learned about something that I could use going forward, or I feel like I can apply it to something that I can do later on. And I think that's how I've sort of trained myself when I know my energies. I mean, it's ADHD for me. It's not Gemini energy, but it's very much the same. So I feel like that's the part of me where like when I feel that energy coming, I'll try to like choose something that I know I've been meaning to look up or I've been meaning to explore and sort of like dive in. So maybe that'll be helpful for some people, but I do agree that it gets a bad rep because I think we need people who are thinking quickly and who are making connections and who are able to think back 10 steps and connect something forward. And I think there's a lot of humor that comes from that too, being able to make quick connections. And there is a lot of really positive energy that comes out of that. So if we can try to lean into that and try to like use that energy for like a fun and playful sort of exploration, I think we'll really enjoy it. But yeah, it definitely takes us out of our earth energy this time of year and throws off our pattern of how we record and how we do our newsletters and all of that, because we're adding in extra stuff because it's exciting to us. So I definitely think we'll have to ponder that a little bit this year.
That's a really good transition and piece to talk about too. The opposite of Gemini is Sagittarius. And we were talking about how that energy in December feels so different. Like, oh, we can handle everything. We've got it all on lockdown. And I think sometimes what happens with the dark side of Gemini is getting stuck in the rigidity of not wanting to believe in anything too far, not wanting to go into those deep corners and really letting it be a ethical framework, so to speak, or something that you really stand behind. Gemini is like, we're going to break it all down. We're going to take all those walls and all those things down. And we've had Jupiter here for the last year, and it's just wrapping up its last month. Gemini season will be its last hurrah. And And you can see how ideas and information and like information overload has just taken over us. And I'm looking forward to some of that energy changing in the next month because it's just, it gets carried away when yes, it's fun to break things down, but we also have to have something to stand on. At the end of the day, you have to have, yes, I believe in this, and no, I don't believe in that. And how we're being encouraged, I think, too, with Pluto in Aquarius, another air sign, being willing to change our mind. And so I think Gemini this year is really giving us one last opportunity to look at things from a new perspective. Like I've always thought X, Y, and Z, but maybe this year I'm going to look at them with just a slightly different lens. How can I lean into something that I thought was a done fact, and is there something else I can bring into that story? So yeah, it's, lean into your intuition, get curious, break those pieces of information down into smaller bite-sized pieces. I always think of Gemini, or Gemini season in particular, but the sign of Mercury, that energy of like the riddler, he's got this feeling of cabinets of curiosities and keys to cabinets you don't even know are there. And there's just pieces of that energy that feel very fun and exciting about Gemini season. So that being said, how did the cards go this year when you pulled them?
This month for Gemini season, I did not put the cards back, which I was actually expecting to put them back. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, this energy feels weird for the next season, but you know what? It actually feels a little bit more grounded, but also very internal. So for the beginning of the month, we have from May 20th to the 24th. For the first few days, I actually pulled the Two of Cups, which is a beautiful card because when you think about Gemini, when we talk about how that's an air sign, there's a lot of connection happening. I think that this also, to me, my initial thought was that this can be a romantic relationship. It can be soulmate energy. It can be that sort of a connection where it's somebody like very deeply aligned, but it can also be in other areas of life. It can also be in like a work or like a career sense, or it could be even the other piece that comes up a lot for me with this card is also your connection with spirit and your connection to your higher self. And so I think regardless of how this shows up for you and this like transition energy, I think what Emily was talking about of that connection between like mind, body, and spirit, and that curiosity and that openness, I think that could show up in a lot of different ways for people. But my initial feeling is that there's a lot of potential for any existing relationships to really like pour back into them and have a conscious effort to listen and be curious about what the other person has to say, or if there's a difficult conversation that has to happen, then having that openness and curiosity and like remembering your intention to make things better and like have that as the grounding energy when you're having conversations. But because this is a cups card, it's a lot of emotions, and so I do feel like regardless of where that's being applied, that the two energy, that like partnership or that connection, whatever part of life that's being attributed to, remembering that there are probably going to be emotions around it, and hopefully they'll be good and positive and like really fulfilling energies that are coming from that. But just keeping in mind that sometimes, because we're going into Gemini season, there can be a lot of overthinking, like Emily was saying. There can be a lot of over processing things, and try to really like lean into the heart energy of that. The Two of Cups, like I think because it's so close to the Ace of Cups, which has a very heart-centered energy, whenever I tune into it, try to hold that energy into it and try to bring in that energy of that heart-centered intention instead of going right to the mind and right to that like analytical piece of it. Try to be more open with your heart so that it's that spirit energy, because I do feel like that's what connects to me every time, is that it's a reminder that it's also a connection to spirit and to your higher self. And so bring that version of yourself and bring that connection to spirit into whatever human connections you're having that week. Because I think that transition from Taurus, which is like a Venus energy, it has like a soft energy to me going into Gemini. If we can bring that heart-centered energy through and that intention of like what your values are, what you care about, who you love, if you bring that into the connections you're making, I think it could be a really good start to the month.
What's so lovely to have some cups energy, because I feel like we haven't had much in a while. It's been, a lot of wands and swords and pentacles. And I was ready for a little emotional. So I'm very happy to see the Two of Cups. And speaking of Gemini season, I should have maybe said this before I had you start on the cards, but I'm going to change things up a little bit this month. Generally, I do a day-by-day summary for the week. And I think so many of us are leaning into the feeling I get for the week. Like, what's the overarching theme? And I wanted to kind of tie that back into the cards that Andrea's pulling. So if you want the day-by-day, it's still 100% available. It's totally free in my newsletter. You can get it at any time. But I'm going to, I think, group this energy kind of like you did for this week. And really, when I leaned into the transits, and I'll go over some of what those big ones are, the feeling I get around this is that you're going to get the idea, you're going to get the inspiration before you get the answer. So you may be, looking for the connection between two things, but the hope of what could be, the curiosity is what's going to strike you first. And so it's like you're looking for the little details, but suddenly you've got this expanded, huge picture, and it can feel a little overwhelming, right? That's a lot of energy. So you're going to get these moments of really deep insight, deep clarity, but then you're going to have to figure out, where does this fit? How do I bring this into my life? What part of this works for me? Gemini season always makes things buzzy, right? Your head is going to get buzzy. You're going to get overwhelmed, but there's going to be so much intuition. Relationships, you're going to have, like Andrea was saying, a lot of insight around relationships this week. And I think some of that has to do with the moon being in Pisces the same day that the sun enters Gemini. We have a lot of that watery influence. On the 22nd, we have really beautiful energy between Venus and Mars. They're going to trine, which always brings opportunities and just this comfortable relationship between the two planets. So when we have that beautiful energy between the two of them, they're asking you to look at things and how your motivations are having you step up to the table. How is your heart leading you into the things you're willing to step into? The sun is also going to have these really beautiful connections to Neptune. Now, Neptune is newly into Aries. So this is that feeling of motivation, that excitement, that jump. But Gemini is like, which direction? Which way can we go? And there's a feeling, just as Pluto is backtracking in Aquarius for the first time, there's a need to dive inward. Like, we've been doing some big outer movements. We've been coming up with new projects, changing jobs, moving, buying houses. Like, all of these things are happening around us. And now it's like, okay, what's my underlying motivation? Where do I really stand on what is happening? And a big part of this newfound, like, I'm going to do it for myself because damn it, anyway, I have to energy is going to come because Saturn is going to move into Aries on the 24th. And this is one of the big transits for the entire year. It's something that we haven't seen since about 1998. And for 2.5 years, we're going to have this fiery responsibility. It's like, I have the responsibility to step out like the fool into something new. Aries is the fool energy, and Saturn's like, but how are you doing it in a way that's conscious of time and effort? And so, like Andrea was saying, yes, this is a relationship with others, but I also think there's a level of, what is your new relationship with yourself? You're going to feel restless. Your mind's going to want to go in different directions, but that brings breakthroughs and revelations and sometimes reality checks, which, yes, we also need. Like, have I gone too far in a direction that is no longer serving me? Okay, then let's cut those ties and let's move in something new. What's a new story that I'm willing to write? Um, and really to trust your own insights. I think that's the big message this week. When the path becomes clear, how are you choosing to step forward and move into the new thing?
I feel like this couldn't have been more appropriate for the next card because that energy for May 25th to the 31st, ending out the month, is actually the Fool. That's actually what came up. And I think the energy behind this that I was feeling is because that connection to like the Two of Cups and like feeling that like really when you feel really connected is when you feel the most willing to take the next step and you feel supported in the energy to take a leap and take a chance. And there's okay, so if anybody follows this podcast and listens to me talk about my favorite movies, they know how much I love the movie Serendipity. And naturally, one of the best parts of the movie is when um I'm not going to remember his actual name in the movie, but when Jeremy Piven's character is praising John Cusack's character because he is being foolish by going on this random journey to try and find this woman he met, years ago. And he says, "You look like a jackass. You're being a jackass." And like he admires him for that quality. And one of the qualities of the fool is being willing to look like a fool because other people will not see your vision. Other people cannot see the logic of how you're getting there. Like other people are just seeing you do this crazy thing. It's kind of like what Emily was talking about in that Gemini energy of the fast thoughts happening and people don't know how you got from point A to point B. It's the same thing with this, where sometimes that internal dialogue, that Two of Cups energy with yourself, like really truly caring about what your feelings are around what the next stage is going to look like for you and what connections you're going to need to sustain and fulfill yourself while you're taking that leap. And so in this energy, it doesn't feel so much like a lot of people are going to be turning their whole life upside down, but it's something that you're already aware of. It could be something that is a big change, but you've been thinking about it for so long that it doesn't feel like a leap to you. It's just that maybe the people around you, you haven't shared it with them. Because we did talk a lot, I think, last month about like the energy of being willing to share something for the first time and how vulnerable that is, like sharing it out loud to people around you. And I think that's where this energy comes in, where it's like maybe people have just now, wrapped their head around it and now you're already doing it. Whereas you've been thinking about it for 6 months or a year, it's already second nature to you. It's like on the other side of it, when people talk about how women have already been considering leaving a relationship for like a year, and then it's like a blindsiding thing to the other person in the relationship because we are in our heads so much. And so I think it's like same with a good thing, a big, exciting thing you want to do. You do spend a lot of time internally. And so in Taurus season, we were talking about really nurturing things yourself within yourself and like choosing your moment to share it out with other people. But now with this Fool energy, it's like now is the time. And if you're feeling that energy, and again, there's so much fire energy coming in, there's so much energy in curiosity. And it's like those things are meeting where it's like you have the energy and you have the curiosity and you have the idea. And so, yeah, you may not have all the pieces, but you may actually have enough to take the leap and allow the rest of it to show up for you. And I think as much as people will try to tell you that that's not the way to do it, that you have to wait till you have every single piece of information, ready for you, by then you might be bored and ready to move on. That's the thing with Gemini. That's why they do things so quickly, because they do it when the inspiration and the energy and the motivation is still there. So I think you need to trust yourself and maybe look foolish, maybe do the crazy thing that other people are telling you not to. And that could be related to a new relationship or a new business partnership. It could be related to that Two of Cups, where like maybe you're making the connection one week and then you're agreeing to do something together already the next week. Like it could be something like that. But I think that relationship with yourself is what you need to trust at this point, rather than the external voices that you're going to be hearing inevitably over the next little while.
Well, couldn't have planned that any better. I love that you pulled the Fool for that week. It really feels like that's exactly what you're being asked to do. It part of it is because Mercury is going to rocket into Gemini, and it's only going to be there for 2 weeks. Like, Mercury moves so fast, we forget that because we're in and out of retrogrades and forwards and backwards. But when it's moving at just its normal get down to business speed, it's really only in a sign for a couple of weeks. So here we move right in on the 25th. And the moon is in Taurus. So you've got this a little bit of emotional stability coming in to support you. And then the new moon is in Gemini on the 26th. So we have a lot of Gemini energy coming in. And I think, so much of what it takes to be the Fool is to celebrate yourself. When, like you said, when no one else is, you have to be willing to look okay, standing behind your idea that nobody else believes in. You have to have the voice that can say what your vision and dream is. You have to feel it. Right? That's manifestation, knowing it in your body. And then you have to be willing to celebrate it, no matter what it looks like. And sometimes we have to be willing to accept the version that comes that isn't quite what we expected, but it's better in maybe ways that we didn't know. And I say that because Mercury is going to be in this really beautiful connection with Pluto midweek. And Pluto always is about surprises and things that don't turn out quite the way you think they will. And so I can imagine that you're going to get pushback this week. You're going to get people that are going to be willing to say, well, this is ridiculous. They're going to want to be in sort of sharp conversation with you. And so it's okay to be a little mysterious. Pluto also says you don't have to reveal everything at once. And what I would say is if you're playing your cards kind of close to your chest, just remember that others might be too. So you might be willing to pass judgment on somebody else's idea and be like, well, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard. But don't burst their bubble either, right? Pay attention to their body language. See what people are really willing to share and what they aren't. By the 28th, we move out of that new moon in Gemini pretty quickly and into Cancer. So you're going to feel a little vulnerable. That's the thing. Cancer builds up that shell to stay protected because you're feeling a little, I don't know. By the end of the week, we have the Sun and a Mercury cazimi. Now, I love cazimis because this is when a planet crosses over the Sun when they meet in the sky at the same degree. And we talk about a cazimi as this feeling of like burning the energy off. The Sun is so bright, it's burning off anything residual that Gemini might be carrying, and the planet kind of comes out like it just had a shower and a bath and it's all sparkly and renewed. But what's interesting is having the new moon, we've got Mercury there, it's all happening in Gemini, we've still got Jupiter hanging out here. This is really about experiencing your ideas in a new light. Let some old things go. It's okay if they burn away, but take some time to be in your own energy. Like if you need to escape, close your office door, go into your tub, just have some time to be with yourself, to get to that clarity, to that truth that's under wraps, because it can be really hard to celebrate and remember to continue to celebrate your truth if you get distracted or someone else overruns it. Be mindful of your boundaries. Claim that joy that you feel when you are in that curiosity and in that excitement, and just don't get caught in the emotional backlash. If somebody else comes in and bursts your bubble, let that be more about them and less about you. Really try to take care of yourself. Give yourself the permission to celebrate, to be joyful, and embrace that Fool card. I think it's the perfect representation for the week.
I definitely feel like that week was very cohesive between the two of our energies. And I think it really leads well into the next week, which is June 1st to the 7th, because I pulled the Two of Pentacles. And the fact that we have a 2 again, this happened last month, I think, where it was like the same numbers. It's been happening a lot where there's a lot of power in the numbers each month. And with there being so much two energy, it's also the feminine energy. The one is like the masculine, the doing, and the two is in the feminine. And I think a lot of it's around trust. I think we're still going to be doing things, we're still going to be making changes, but it's going to be a lot more about making changes based on what comes to us, like the ideas that come naturally, the things that come naturally to us, our own inherent gifts, the things that we don't have to effort for, the things that feel good. Because the two of Pentacles talks a lot about like balancing and juggling and maybe having a lot of things on your plate. And with this energy, I think sometimes it says like trying to get rid of some stuff to make space on our plate, but sometimes it means we have responsibilities we can't let go of. So we have to try and be flexible now and adapt and find a way to be able to do all the things that we need to do in a way where we don't feel like we're burning out or we don't feel overwhelmed. And so it may be that we have other people that help us balance those things. And that could be where, again, that relationship energy is still around, like that Two of Cups energy. There could be people who are willing to balance those things with you so that you're each only holding one thing. But a lot of it's going to be internal, because sometimes this is the point where people give up, where you've taken the leap and then you start to panic and be like, oh my God, why did I say I would do this? Why did I commit to this? But it just sometimes takes a bit of reworking. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It doesn't mean that it's the wrong choice. It just means that something else is going to have to be a little less, present on your day-to-day schedule. Like something else might have to let go a little bit. But it doesn't mean that everything has to be dropped to the ground in order to start something new. And I think that's the struggle we all have, where it's like, because I want to do this thing and it's really important to me and it's going to take a lot of time, we think, okay, that means I can't do this anymore. Or sometimes it's the opposite, where we do have to let go of something that we feel like we're not willing to. But this period right now, I think, is the figuring out part, where it's like, what can I still hold on to, or how can I do this? And it's that reworking. And then maybe on the other side of the week, you'll realize, you know what, maybe this thing isn't a priority anymore. Maybe I don't need to work it back into the schedule. Maybe I can let it go. But you don't have to decide it all at once. I think that's what we tend to feel, because we tend to have like a bit of guilt or a little bit of a self-doubt that creeps in that tells us we shouldn't do this thing that we really want to do for ourselves. But just slow down. The Gemini energy is not helpful sometimes in this, where we can think of all the possible things that could go wrong. But I think taking the energy to be curious about how you feel about all of these other things, or new ideas to create a different routine, or to maybe do things differently, like what Emily's been saying, like that is a really big benefit of Gemini energy, is being able to have a different perspective. Like if you put yourself in the shoes of, if you were somebody else that you admire, how would they do this? Instead of trying to use your same everyday thinking for a new situation. But I do feel like there's a lot of potential for setting yourself up for success, because it is a Pentacles card that is still an energy around your material world and your finances. And so trust that you did make the decision or take the leap because it was going to be lucrative. It's just a matter of finding the best way of balancing everything else to make it happen.
You 100% picked up on the energy of what's coming in. And so we have, right, this leftover Mercury Kazemi, where we're like, ideas are coming out of our pores at this point. Everything's moving faster and faster. His Mercury's got us picking up speed. The sun's got us picking up speed. Jupiter's expanding all of this. We've got tons of stuff happening in Aries. We're like, I want it now. I can see it. I want to celebrate it. Let's make this happen. And this week, really what happens, and it doesn't happen until the 6th, so this is later in the week, but Venus is going to enter Taurus. And here's what's happened. Like everything's going to slow down. We go into this Venetian break of like, oh, but I want to celebrate things and let's go slow, which a poor Taurus, we're always the ones that are like, oh, everybody's waiting on, or we're stubborn, or any of those things. But if you think about Taurus in terms of a garden, you have to plant the seeds. And yes, you are ready for that first tomato. May 1st, I can taste that tomato. But I know that tomato isn't going to come until August. No matter what I do, no matter how impatient I am, stomp my feet, give it extra fertilizer, water, like nature takes its time. This is some of that energy that's coming in. You can see the thing, you want to go after it, and you just have to savor the journey a little bit. And I always think about, we were talking about that Gemini season and the pollinators, right? Bees and butterflies and that buzziness. But even honey takes time, right? You have to wait for the process. So don't let the fieriness, the need for something to happen override what could be something really incredible. Like, what's better than a beautiful tomato or beautiful honey at the end of the season? Like, we have to lean into what's coming versus what we maybe have in this moment. So, your brain's on fire. You've got a million things going on. Just be in the soft. Give yourself permission to feel slowed down. If you want to go crazy, rearrange your cabinets. Go for progress over perfection. But craving some softness and some stillness, taking care of your nervous system is not selfish. It's not slowing you down. You're going to get to the finish line just like the tortoise. You're going to get there with your house on your back and you're going to be comfortable and you got snacks. Or you could come screaming across the finish line like the rabbit, half strung out, worn out, hungry. We also have what I would say this week are some emotional undercurrents, because on the 6th and 7th, you're going to have a Scorpio moon again coming in. And that just always brings in like a little additional spice underneath things. So I would say, be kind to yourself. Do you really have to say that thing out loud or make that drastic move, or are you just kind of spiraling? And what details actually deserve your energy and what can we let go? Lean into the softness that's going to come for the 6 weeks with Venus here. Venus loves being in Taurus, and just soak it up. It's a beautiful time of year. Get your journals out. Let the ideas flow on the pages, but you don't have to own every single one of them.
I am very much looking forward to that Venus and Taurus energy. I love Taurus energy in general, and that just feels like the perfect way to have it still last a little bit longer going into Gemini season. So I'm excited for that. And I think for this week from June 8th to the 14th, I pulled the Knight of Wands, which came up recently as well. I didn't look up exactly what week, but I know within the last couple months we've seen it. And it's got that Aries energy to it, the fire of the wands. But something that I always keep in mind too is that even though it's the knight, it still holds the energy to me of the 4 of Wands, because she has the 4 wands in the same formation behind her here. And so she's beating to her own drum, and she's got a fire there. But it's almost like it has the energy of a 4 and a 5 at the same time to me when I look at it in this energy, where yes, it has the fire energy, but what Emily was talking about with that slowing down, the Venus and Taurus, it's like knowing that 4 of Wands, like the commitment, the marriage, the contract, that traditional energy, there's stability in this energy. So even though it may feel chaotic, again, you might still be looking like the fool, where people are like, what the hell are you even doing? But I think it also does give permission to other people when they see that you're fine and that you're not freaking out and you're not losing it. You're taking that time to really feel the softness and feel the slowness and trust that what you're doing is going to be good. There is that background in the back of your head where like, I'm doing this because I know I can build a life with this. I know this is going to be sustainable. I wouldn't have taken the leap if I thought it was a 1-week adventure that was going to burn out. I wouldn't have changed things to accommodate this thing if I thought it wasn't going to serve a purpose. And so that 5 energy, because she does have a flame on the drum in it, always feels like that is the thing. So you have to make a change in order to get to that new reality, to get to that new level of stability. And it will feel like fire in that time. It's going to be a lot of creative energy, a lot of change, a lot of, maybe you do have to burn some things down to make space for something new. But the fact that she's got her eyes closed, she's playing the drum, she's in her own element, I think that is the energy that actually is more sustainable. I think there's this energy that comes up for me when I fall into the card where what might seem like creating a fire and burning everything up to someone else, that's what's lighting you from the inside. And I think too, doing the same thing you were doing before would feel unsustainable to you. It would feel like you need to burn it down at some point in a way that's not going to be sustainable when you have no plan. When you like, that's the alternative, is to keep doing it until you burn bridges. And I think this energy is not that. This energy is taking the initiative to make the change when you have the energy, you can see a plan, and you have time to create the new version of it, and that it's not an emergency. It's not coming from a place of like panic. It's coming from a place of, I feel this in my body. I feel like I need to make a change, and now I'm going to do it in this way. And I think we have to keep that in mind, that sometimes somebody beating to their own drum, you just can't hear it. It's not that they're not listening something just because you can't hear the music. It's like when you see someone dancing and then you realize they have headphones on, or you realize they have earbuds in. Like, you don't always know why someone is doing what they're doing, but you have to assume that there is a reason that you just aren't privy to yet. And again, like with what Emily was saying earlier, we don't share everything right off the bat, you know? And I think there's a reason for that, because we have to feel it in our bodies and feel totally embodied in that new version before we share it, so that regardless of what people say, we're like, I'm already in it. I'm already doing it. So hop on or leave me alone. Sort of the energy I get with this. But as much as it's a fire card, that's just what I'm saying, is it has more of a stable energy. It has more of like a purpose to it than it does, chaos in this energy.
This is a big week. We've got Saturn that just moved into Aries like 2 weeks ago. And now we've got Jupiter, and it's going to move into Cancer this week. This is a lot of fire and water. And what I was thinking of when you were talking about that, it's like hearing music underwater, and it's muffled. It's like you are underwater and there are things happening around you, but they're all a little distorted. Visually, the sound is distorted, like things are just gonna feel off. And this is where you've got to have that that celebration on the inside that we talked about, because this week could throw you from that in some way. The very first thing on the 8th, we get Mercury meeting up with Jupiter. Okay, but they're at like the last possible degrees at this point of Gemini. So this is a lot. And Mercury sliding across Jupiter, it's like, how many more ideas? It's like pouring ideas into a cup that's already overflowing. And so now you're going to be overthinking the ideas. But later in the day, because Mercury is flying at this point, it's moving so fast, it also moves into Cancer on the same day. So you've got this whiplash feeling. And now you're underwater. You're emotional because you've either gone in too many directions or shared and someone doesn't agree, or you're feeling overwhelmed. There's just, it's an emotional overwhelm is what I feel coming in with this week. And then on the 9th, guess who joins back up with Mercury? Mercury's still moving on, but Jupiter then moves into Cancer. And this again is one of those signature events of the year. We have all of these outer planets moving into new things. And the 9th is one of the most difficult days of the month. The last time we had Jupiter in Cancer was 2014. So you can look back at that time frame to kind of get an idea of what it may have come up. But when Jupiter moves into Cancer, we get an abundance of family issues, family drama, but also feelings of nostalgia, wanting things to be the way they were. Sometimes we can go overboard on feeling protective, needing more borders, more rule. Like all of these things start to kind of foreshadow what could be coming up. And another thing that I think is super fascinating, and I don't want to go too political, but it's also the same week that he, that's all I'm going to say, might be having a military parade to celebrate his birthday. I'm like, what's more ostentatious, over the top, than spending millions of dollars on a parade that proves nothing? Like, that's just part of this energy. It's going to be overwhelmed. You're going to have a ton of intuition coming in, but you're also going to have breakthroughs that could lead to these contradictions internally and externally. By the end of the week, we're going to have the sun square the North Node. This is that tenuous, like, face off between what's my destiny and I just want to cry and take a nap and I want comfort and stability in the way things were. So that's kind of at odds within you as well. Mood swings, I'd be aware of that this week. Whispers from your body saying, slow down, just feel this. You don't have to like it. You don't have to know what to do with it, but just give yourself permission to feel it and be in it. And then with the things that come up that bother you, is it a truth, right? Gemini is all about like how many possibilities and options are there? So is it a truth for you, or is it just trauma in somebody else's clothes? Like, what are you feeling? And lean into how you can nourish yourself. I really feel the connection between this week, like I said, and that Fool card. You're going to have to be willing to go inward and celebrate yourself to find some of that stability.
I definitely feel like this next card for the last little bit of the month is leaning into that energy a lot, because from June 15th to the 20th, I pulled another major arcana, but I pulled the moon. And so I feel like, as much as we have the Fool that's like just starting it on the journey, this is where a lot of that water energy comes in with the moon, where it's doing that deep dive back into the emotions to see what you really do feel about the situation. And maybe it's an opportunity, it's like a refresh within the cycle, where it also creates a 9 because it's the 18. That creates a 9, and we're in a 9 year. So it's this opportunity to check in again and to sit in your own feelings, be in your own energy, and do that deep dive of, what am I missing? Why does this not quite feel right yet? Sometimes you can be doing the thing that you want to do, and it's not so much that you're questioning if you want to do it. It's just like, what maybe could I be adding to it to make it feel more like me? Or what could make me feel even more connected to it? And again, it could be like that nostalgia energy, or that looking at the past. There could be something that you need to heal that's being brought up through the process that you just haven't been aware of yet. So just be extra mindful of anything that does come up that is related to something in the past. Again, that time frame even that Emily brought up, being in around 2014, there could be some wounds around that come up around this time. I know for me, I had a car accident that ended up having me off of work for 6 months. That happened in 2014. So like for me, I was like, you know what? At that time, I was questioning whether I was going to be able to go back to work. And now I'm at a point where I'm adding some more things to my career to go in the direction of a more creative field that is not something that everybody chooses to do at this stage in life. And so I do think people will have something maybe from that time period that is just coming up to be healed. And I think there is a lot that we can do in that energy of the moon, because it also illuminates things that maybe were hidden. It also brings our attention to things in a new way. Even if you think about when, you're in the daytime and you're connecting with people more, and then all of a sudden at night is when you tend to have more of those moments of reflection and that time to really go inward and to replay things in your head. But one thing I just want to mention to you is this card of what I feel is there's this line in the description somewhere. I haven't looked at the book in a long time, but the piece that always sticks with me is that sometimes you have to dive deeper to find that spark again, because the next card is the sun. We go from sun, and the sun is a very positive card where you're being seen and you're being celebrated and you have a lot of things happening. So keeping in mind that this is just a moment to clear out or to heal anything that you need to resolve before the thing shows up and gets seen and is put out in the light again. So just keeping in mind that even if it does feel like a harder week, again, there's a very, very strong message throughout the whole month to still hold on to that Fool energy. Don't backtrack on something that you know is for you just because there's something coming up for you or something that's making you question it. It's just providing you opportunities to make sure that that foundation is going to be so strong, because you're looking at all the things that could go wrong that maybe weren't in your awareness when you were really excited and like jumping into it. And I think you don't want to have that jumping into it. I think there's a reason We take the leap before we have all the information. If we knew all the things we were going to have to work through and heal in the journey, we'd probably be like, no, thank you. We'd never do anything. We'd keep doing the familiar. So keeping that in mind, if you've gotten this far to the point where you're healing something, it means you're in it, you're doing it, and you should be celebrating that. So try to allow it to be just something that's bringing you more information, and don't let it be something that makes you spiral further. Try to find that spark while you're down there, and don't keep going on the deep dive, just for the sake of it. Really try to find what it is that the moon is telling you and revealing to you.
I think it's so interesting to get this card right before solstice. I was like, literally before the sun reaches its peak in the sky, we have that moment of questioning. So that spot on for this energy. It is kind of another difficult week, honestly. Not to, I just, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Sorry. It's a bit of a rough one. We have more of the quote unquote signature events of the year happening this week. One of the big ones right away on the 15th, we've got Uranus, which is in like the final degrees of Taurus, and it's going to be battling it out with Mars in Leo. So it's at a 90-degree square. Well, they're both stubborn. You're both really tense, fixed signs. And so who's going to win? Your motivation, your action, or like this crazy idea that's just be still, just wait a little longer? Or Uranus and Taurus has been breaking down, I think, well, obviously our money systems. That's all up in the air right now. Whose tariffs are whose? And are we Bitcoin or are we meme coins? Or like, who knows? The things that we've relied on are not necessarily there anymore. So it's like, okay, I'm just going to do something for myself. Well, okay, then that leads to infighting and who's in charge and And then we've also got Jupiter now. It's going to be in a 90-degree angle with Saturn. So these two that just changed signs are now going to be like, no, but I'm in charge. Jupiter's always bringing, yes, expansion and abundance, but it does it kind of without perspective. Like it's just happy. It's like, here we are. It's Christmas. I'm going to make everything Christmas all the time. We can't have Christmas all the time. It's too much. And having it in Cancer is going to feel a little emotional. And then Saturn in Aries is that fool, but it's also saying I have to do this thing. It doesn't necessarily make sense, but I'm going to challenge the status quo in some way. I describe this energy as like watching a parade float pull into the parking lot at the grocery store and everyone jumping out and going in to the grocery store. You're like, what? The parade is not happening in the parking lot. It's loud. You have no idea why it's happening. Things are in a completely inappropriate setting. But I guess we're in the middle of the parade now. Like, either be a clown or watch it go by. So that's kind of the chaos, essentially, that's going to really embrace on the 15th. Now, it doesn't get better. Sorry to say. But then Jupiter is going to square Neptune. Okay, Neptune also just moved into Aries. So now you've got, again, water and fire going at it with each other. And it's going to last a couple of days because neither of these are fast movers. It feels a little frustrating. These are my dreams and my hopes, and everything's kind of fighting with one another. I would say watch burnout from overgiving, overthinking, overworrying. I mean, if you're worried that the parade is off route, you could be the person that tries to stop traffic and get the float back in the parade, or you can just laugh. Just let it go. Really take time to connect to your spirit team. I think that's going to be a really big, important piece that week. Find out if I'm leaning into old patterns. Why? Why? A little bit of shadow work, right? Why is this coming up again? What old patterns are resurfacing? How can I make my body feel safe? Venus is going to be bringing you back into the slowness and the stillness of yourself. So trust in that. You don't have to hustle to make everything happen. The parade is going to go on, whether the parade wants to or not. Just let the floats go by. And then you get ready for solstice on the 20th, and that's going to light things up. We move the sun then into Cancer energy. And one of the other things that's going to happen is that Mars is going to move into something other than Cancer and Leo. Finally, by the 17th, and this is after it's had its little face off, it's going to move into Virgo. We have not had new Mars energy since November. We've been in nothing but Leo and Cancer since November. So this is also going to bring some of that structure that you want, but with it comes, like, you have to make a choice, right? Am I going to take care of myself, or am I the savior? What's the balance? So get ready for it. I think there will be some stability after solstice, but I feel like it is a very pivotal moment this year. There's just a lot of energy, and unfortunately, we still have a little bit more to go of this intense buildup into July, just from a year standpoint. Before we start to get into retrogrades and things will subside a little bit through the second half. But this is it. We're still in the middle of it. This is a big year. Take care of yourself. Get curious, have fun, take a nap. All of those things are important.
Yeah, I think the fact that there was so much energy in water and fire. I know we have a Pentacles card in there, but we have Major Arcana energy this month. We have the Two of Cups, which is starting us off with having hopefully some support for the month. And whether that is really leaning into your spirit team or, new connections that you're making that are going to help you move your vision forward. I think either way, having two major arcana in the same month is kind of a hint that, yes, it is going to be some major energy shifts. And the fact that it is a 9-year, and even with the moon, with that being the equivalent to a 9 being the 18, and then the Fool is the 0. So we are really doing a lot of big cycle changes, even, internally, but also as a collective. And we're always interacting with that energy, whether we try to keep ourselves as a hermit or not, we're always interacting with that collective energy. And I think that's why it's so important to really focus and stay focused on your own journey, because you're going to get swept into the parade, whether you like it or not. You're going to find yourself marching and get to the end and be like, where did I even get this baton? Like, whose is this? I don't even know these people. How did I get roped into this? So really keep your own energy in mind and in check and in your body, and try to just be more of an observer of that external energy, unless it's in your wheelhouse, unless your work is highlighted in some way. Just let it go, There's this scene from talking about Christmas a couple times. It's so funny because there's this scene in A Miracle on 34th Street, the 90s version, where she's told that Santa isn't real and everything, and she's sitting and the Thanksgiving parade goes by their window, and the man trying to date her mom is just like, "Oh, are you watching the parade?" And then she just sits there and she goes, "There's nothing left to see but the guys cleaning up horse poop, and that doesn't throw me at all." And so it's just that idea of being that person, like being realistic, being truthful. You know what? This isn't my parade. This isn't my thing. This isn't something that I need to put any energy into. And just because everyone else seems to be cheering for some unknown reason doesn't mean I have to be. I can still be honest with my feelings, and I don't have to get pulled into it. Even if everyone else is having a great time and I don't really think it's for me, I don't have to change my course. I don't have to change my plans for the day. I can just take the detour around the parade and go where I need to go. So I think that's the other piece. It was funny when I saw it in my head, but I could see what it was trying to say is like, you don't have to join in and be a member just because everyone else is. There is a really strong importance around paying attention to your own dream and making sure that you make that a reality.
I was really glad you brought up the fact that it's the year of the snake again. This post came up in my feed on Instagram a couple days ago, and it's old. I think the post, it actually says here that it's from April 22nd. But one of the things it talks about is snakes and how snakes were the first oracles. And we've talked about this reference of really shedding our skin this year. But one of the things that happens with snakes when they're molting is that there's a fluid that builds up between the old skin and the new skin to help. It's like when you get a sunburn, you have that layer in between to protect your skin until everything shifts. But when a snake is about to shed her skin, her eyes glaze over. They go opaque and clouded, and there's this temporary blindness, which is part of the process, right? It's this liminal state. It's like you have to literally blindly trust in things working out. And when you can't see the future, what do? You go inward. You go to those places that are inside, the more beyond, that there's a truth that doesn't come from what we see in front of us, but it comes from what we know. And this post is beautiful. It talks about how oracles weren't psychics. They were bodies tuned to vibrations, knowing what was going to come from the cracks. And I just thought it was so powerful, that imagery, because I think that's kind of this pre-solstice feeling is like, it's emotional. We're shedding things. We're a little blind to what's coming. Overwhelmed. There's so much going on, and our poor little systems almost feel like they can't handle it. But if you remember to go inward, to be in that Venus and Taurus, that snake shedding her skin, just be still. Trust in what your truth is. Again, that Fool card is so perfect. I keep going back to it, but you have to celebrate your truth and your direction and trust. Just lean heavily into the trust.
I love that, because I think too, like, that in between, that liminal space is kind of what the Fool is, because in numerology, we go from the 1 to the 9 and then we go right back to the 1. But that 0 is like in between those. And it is the unknown piece, because the Magician comes as the one that's, okay, I have everything I need, time to start doing the thing, right? Like trying to remember you have your magic. And, at the end of the world, it's like the completion. Okay, we went through this whole cycle, but that in between is like getting from one major cycle into the next. That in between does take that trust and that blind trust, because otherwise we'd never get into a new cycle. We'd never do anything new if we had to wait for all of the evidence to show up. The evidence only comes when you're already on the journey. You have to start going before you start seeing all the pieces come into place. So I love that imagery of the snake shedding its skin as like the point we're at that Fool card. It's shedding, and we know that there's something new coming, but we have to just keep going. We have to choose the direction and take it, and just not really allow anything to stop that, because there really isn't anything. It's that thing, like, you can't go back. Once you know something doesn't fit anymore, and once you know the next thing is what you're doing, even if you try to fit back into it, you won't. It won't fit anymore. So you have to keep that in mind too, that sometimes it's not really a choice. Sometimes it is something you just have to do, and you know that in your heart. Sometimes we fight it. Like, we don't do it the easy way. Sometimes we drag our feet and cry and kick and scream, but we do it eventually. So the smoother you can make them for yourself and hanging on to that trust, even when it gets a little chaotic this month, the better you'll be feeling on the other side of solstice. Like Emily said, I think once we get into that energy of the summer and solstice and the sun shining on us and being seen and all of that energy that comes afterwards, and summer social energy where you're feeling like putting yourself out there and sharing it, and you feel more open to sharing your new journey and like bringing people with you on it. I think that is what's coming, but for now you just have to be a little uncomfortable.
I was just thinking of the story we've talked about so much this year of like we were getting on the on-ramp, and then it was like, oh my God, I got to merge. And then you're in traffic and you're getting a million people are cutting you off. Traffic's going crazy fast. And now I feel like we're out of town on our way to a family reunion, which we may or may not be super excited about. Depends on the moment. But we're also in between cities. Here in the desert Southwest, it's like Route 66, and there isn't gas for 75 miles. And you have to just go. You have to trust that when you get to the next town, there will be gas, and they might be open, that they haven't closed or had some random thing happen, and you're on the road. You can't turn around. It's too far to go back. You're not quite there yet. We're in that space. It very much feels like we're on a family road trip. We're not sure we're loving it. Everyone's had too many car snacks. We're tired of the games, and we're not there yet. How it's feeling.
Yeah, bringing back that "are we there yet" energy from before, where we finally have the right exit, and now we're like, "Are we there yet?" immediately. So now we're in that in between where we're still not there, but we know that that inner GPS is like, "Yes, you're going to get there." It's just a matter of when. And I think, unfortunately, that's the most difficult part for us, is not knowing the when and the how. But yeah, I have a good feeling about it. I just knew that Emily had said at the beginning of the year in our Gaining Light that there was a lot happening in like June and July. So I kind of had that feeling going into the month when I was pulling the cards. But the fact that I didn't put them back tells me that that in itself is an oracle that we will get through this and it will be good. It's just, we have to keep pushing through. And unfortunately, that has been our story for the last 5 years. And so we can do it. We have a lot of experience in that area at this point.
At this point, yeah. I saw someone had written a poem back to Emily Dickinson because she had written the poem like hope is a butterfly, or like hope is this beautiful thing. And someone was like, no, hope is a rat. Like it is a rat in the sewer surviving on scraps. And I feel like that's where we are the rat that is just, hope's there, but man, it is hope is scrappy at this point. Do you have anything exciting coming up in the next month you want to share?
I don't have a whole lot actually going on. I'm trying to limit myself because I have so many things in the air and I have things I've put out there, a lot of seeds I've planted. And what I've learned this year is that I'm very good at planting the seeds and putting things out there, but then sometimes I plant too many. And then I know that the process of watering them all and harvesting them all is going to be too much. So I'm in that process right now of like, I put them all out there. And before I start anything else, I'm just seeing what comes back. So I'm in a slower period, which is good. And I think because now it gives me time to do readings and to work on some prints and to connect with people on the one-on-one a little bit more. I think that's what I'm looking forward to for the next while. Of course, my newsletter will be coming out. And for those who did the spring recharge, there's going to be a few more posts coming in there for some more energies that are coming in with some of the crystals and plants and things that came up for us in April. So there's going to be more of that sneaking in throughout the month. And yeah, I feel that I'm actually sticking to the theme of just letting things be and trusting that all of the energy I'm putting into things is bringing me somewhere. So I don't have a whole lot. What about you?
Will you have a summer recharge?
I will. Yes. So it's already available. It's out there on my website. So it'll be in the first week of July, I believe. And so that'll be the same format where we're going to be on a Zoom while I do the energy and then have a chance to chat about what came up and what we experienced. And then you'll get your list of everything that came up within a day or two. And then throughout the summertime, there'll be more of these kinds of posts. I did one on Moldavite and Vanadinite working together, of having the intensity of the Moldavite and then the really heavy groundedness of the other was the most recent one. And then I have a couple more in the works that'll be coming too.
Oh, I love it. I so enjoyed that format. I'm looking forward to the summer solstice one for sure. And it's crazy to think July will be here in a hot minute. I've been busy with the Akashic fairy tales, which I know I keep teasing, but when you're building something new from scratch, you have to build systems to support things that aren't always conventional. And so I've had a little bit of that feeling in the last couple weeks, just really wanting it to live up to the vision I have and the expectations I have for it, which, Taurus girl always wants it to be pretty and perfect. But it is coming, and I'm so grateful that Andrea did a proofread through for me and really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to releasing that hopefully any day after this podcast comes out. Just keep an eye out. I will, of course, ping people and let everyone know, but it's coming. And that's been my biggest project aside from client readings. There's a few other little things that are going to be popping up this summer that I'm excited about, but don't have permission to share about just yet. And I loved your metaphor of planting all the seeds. That's exactly how I feel. And now I'm like, oh, can't water all of these. I was the recipient of some beautiful tomato plants this weekend from a dear friend who did just that very thing, planted too many seeds and was like, oh no. So hopefully I can share some of my sprouts with others as well. Of course, Cards and Cosmos is still happening the first Saturday of each month. We have so much fun pulling cards and just supporting each other throughout the month with the energies as they come and go. So please, if you get a chance, you can sign up to do it live and in person with us, or you can buy just the ritual kit and do it on your own. There's still a meditation and the workbook to go through. And yeah, other than that, I've been sharing a little bit more of my personal story and artwork on Instagram. I've been much more active over there than I've been in the last few months. Probably this Gemini energy coming in, wanting things to be and feel more chatty. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting through the middle part of this year. I love a good Gemini season, and Venus and Taurus is going to feel really, really lovely.
Yeah, I'm very excited for those things. Cards and Cosmos, of course, always is something that carries me through the month. But I think that Akashic Fairy Tales, like, it was such a magical experience. You never know, depending on a new format, learning a new format. But honestly, every piece of it just all came together so beautifully. There were some synchronicities that came up. Like, I think there was just so much opportunity to dive back into it as well and revisit it. So I'm excited for everyone. I'm not giving any spoilers, so everyone will just have to wait till it's available. But I would 100% recommend doing the Akashic Fairy Tales journey. Like, it was something that I had no idea what to expect, which I think is the best energy to go into anything, that full energy jumping in the journey. But yeah, I feel like it's going to be very magical for anyone who decides to dive in. I can't wait for them to experience that. And I think too, that energy of having more of your personal story out there. I've been doing more blog articles as well. And I think there's a lot, again, it's that Gemini energy of wanting to dive deeper into different topics and, get out there and be social and share more. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of that from you and from other people that I follow. I've noticed that sneaking up where there's a little bit more being shared, and it pulls me in more. I tend to not be on Instagram when everyone else that I follow is really quiet, and then it makes me not share as much. So I feel like we're all going to be out there and, scrolling all day, but I think it's going to be good to get to pull in some more nuggets about other people.
Oh, thank you so much for that. I really, really appreciate it. I adore you and all of your projects as well. And hopefully this new format was fun for everyone. Let us know if you loved it, hated it, want things to go back, ready for us to freeform, whatever. If you need us to rap more, anything, we're open. But thank you, as always, for listening. We hope you have a wonderful Gemini season. And if there's anything we can do to support you, as always, don't hesitate to reach out. Andrea, anything else to say before we head out?
No, I feel like this is going to be a really good month. As much as there's going to be a lot of chaos, I think everyone's going to really be armed with all of the energy they need. And of course, if you need to book a reading or a session or something, do whatever it is for self-care, whether it's, going to get a massage or something. As always, as we always recommend, do whatever you need to do to feel supported. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what solstice brings us, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Spirit Crumbs. You can find me on Instagram for this podcast at Spirit Crumbs. Or you can also find me at Concrete and Crystals for my own spiritual offerings and more tidbits about my own journey. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.